بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. First of all, we'd like to thank all of the brothers and sisters who helped put the programs together and made lots of sacrifices for this place, and for all of the Muslims in the community who made lots of sacrifices to help the schools in Hussainiyat. Please give a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Next, we also want to thank, obviously, the brave young men and women who came up here and recited Quran for us to help us get us started on the right foot. Please give another salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now, as we're continuing along this hadith of Fadak, the next issue which Fatima Zahra salam alayha gives for us is talking about imamat. And she says, "What imamatuna imanan min al-farqa," that our leadership is a protection from divisions. So this is an important part of our religion, and we don't just have the imam for the sake of an imam. That this has certain benefits for us as mu'mineen. Now, the verse that she's referring to is actually please give another salawat. It's actually two different verses. One of them is وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحُوا بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. So it says, and hold fast to the rope of Allah altogether, and do not be divided. And remember the blessing of Allah upon you when you were enemies, and Allah removed this from your hearts and put you, and you became after that as brothers by His mercy, by His blessing. Now this is important, that what was the blessings that was able to have the people united when they had been divided? And we get our answer to that in another verse of the Quran, which is the verse of Ghadir that we always say, the last verse. الْيَوْمْ يَعِسَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ دِينِكُمْ فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَاخْشَوْنِي الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَضَيْتُ لَكُمْ إِسْلَامَ دِينًا. So now this Islam in its complete form is what gives the people this blessing. Meaning it's not just the beginning part or an incomplete part of Islam or part of Islam or half of Islam. No, when you have the full Islam, it gives you this blessing of also ikhwah. And it takes out this hatred from your heart. Now we have to look a little bit at the culture and the time of the people that were there to see how Islam did this. Obviously we had all of these different things which we talked about, which Fatima gave ishara to, and which came before, like the praying and the fasting and the humility that came from that, and the justice which is coming with Islam, that you have justice so people don't have hatred because one person got over on the other person, that you have fasting, which is bringing unity between the people, not making a difference between rich and poor. You have Hajj, You have all of these things which are bit by bit getting the people closer to this stage of unity. However, there is still some kind of separation between them without this imamat. And how is that? We have to look at what was the big problem that they had in this community, in the Arabs of Jahiliyyah. They were extremely, extremely proud. And extremely proud of their own lineages. We had the surah Al-Hakum Al-Takathur, Hatta Zurtumu Maqabir. And two meanings of it, and different asbab al-nuzul. One of the zahir meanings is that Al-Hakum Al-Takathur, meaning they're just collecting wealth, and then they, or not just wealth, whatever, takathur, just more and more and more, talking about looking at greed until they reach the qubur. Al-Hakum Al-Takathur, they reach the graveyard. Another one of the things they said, one of the tafsirs is saying that two people were arguing with each other. And one was saying, my tribe is better than your tribe. And so they start counting the members. I have, Fulan and Fulan and Fulan and Fulan. And so each one is trying to say his tribe is bigger. And they're counting until finally they run out of people. So they started counting the dead people and adding them into the tribe. And so they're like, you're just so into this takathur that you're now counting people who aren't even alive yet as your numbers. In either meaning, we see even from people like the Abu Lahab, la'anahullah, that he felt like because he had so much wealth that he was now able to do mubaraza and challenge the Prophet. And this was a theme that goes back in different aqwam and different communities, that the Prophet would come and they would say, why doesn't he have a lot of wealth like us? Why doesn't he have a lot of children like us? Why doesn't he have a lot of maqam like us? And so they would reject the Prophet, which they knew was a prophet, out of this envy and jealousy and also arrogance, that I think that I'm better than him. So now, this imamat, which the Prophet chose the leader. So now there's not a rivalry between each other, and also there's not a person trying to get to this position of leadership and fame with these useless things. So we say that Allah is going to point out for you the best of you. And Allah is going to pick the traits that He considers what makes someone most worthy, not what we consider. So it's not that Amir al-Mu'mineen is the Imam because he was the Prophet's cousin. The Prophet had other cousins. Why isn't it Aqil then? That one also was Abu Talib's son. If it's just blood relations, then Aqil is also his blood relation. However, or even we say, like, the Prophet had other sons. He had a son, Ibrahim. Why wasn't Ibrahim the, Imam after him? No, it's specific to the people bearing these certain traits that Allah loves. One of the ni'mat that Allah gave us is that He put all of them in one family line. It makes the search easier. Imagine He put it all over the place. Every time somebody pops up and says, I'm the Imam, and then we don't know, maybe he really is, maybe he really isn't, and then trying to make this proven is going to be very hard. And also, we're kind of simple creatures. You know how we are. We want it to be easy. If you give us complicated math, I don't know if you've ever seen the little picture where they have the math problem come and the guy's head starts spinning because this and that, plus this, carry the two. It's too hard for us. So Allah makes it easy. And it makes it easy also to argue when you want to argue for the shajara of Nabuwa versus the shajara to Shatta. You want to argue with the tree of the Prophet and you are against the diverse prophets, the diverse trees. Sometimes I was arguing somebody. I shouldn't be arguing with these people, but anyway, I was anyway. So he's like, why are you Shia? Why do you follow the Ahlulbayt? I said, it's pretty simple for me. I said, Islam was revealed to the Arabs before anyone else, before the rest of the Muslims. So if the Muslims have a dispute about does Islam say this or does Islam say that, I'll say, well, Islam was revealed within the Arabs, so they're going to be more likely to be closer to the truth than somebody, the Muslims in Mongolia or something. More likely, right? So I'm going to lean there. Then if the Arabs have a dispute amongst themselves, then I'm going to look to the people in Medina. Why? Because these people were around the Prophet, so they're going to be much more likely to know what the Prophet said and have more information than, the people in Yemen or the people in Kuwait or some other person. He said, yeah, that makes sense. I said, if the Muslims there have a dispute, the people of Yemen, then I would go with the Muhajirin because they were Muslim longer, and so they're more likely to have known maybe something got mentioned in Mecca that didn't get mentioned in Medina, and so they were more likely to know. He said, yeah, you follow so far? He said, yeah. And I said, if the Muhajirin have a dispute, then I would follow the family of the Prophet because maybe they miss something, don't know something that the Prophet, maybe it only comes up in a family setting. So then I would be more likely to follow the family of the Prophet. He stopped arguing after that. He didn't say I was right, but he stopped arguing. So please give us salawat al Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It makes it simple. Imagine it was random people. Sometimes it's an Irani, sometimes it's a Turk, sometimes it's this, then you can't make that argument. Allah makes it so it's easy for us to follow. Allah's like, how when you have a book, first you have the index and you have the, the table of contents and things like that, just to make it easy for us so that we can handle this information. Besides what other reasons Allah might have had for putting it all in one lineage. He has 1,000 reasons, but this is one that we can see. That when you now take off this thing of who is going to be the leader, and you say it's going to be these ashkhas and the people who resemble them, now this is a big relief for the mu'mineen, so you don't have to now fight over leadership. You just look, you find the Ahlulbayt, and then you do what they have to say. So this allows for there to be unity between the people. When the people start to try to challenge that, then that's when they become disunited. So the Prophet organized it, put everything together, and so it's very interesting. It's mentioned right in the beginning of the Quran too. Sirat alladina an'amta alayhim. Right in the beginning of the Quran, and then also right in the end. That this is the ni'mat of Allah, this Islam, but with wilayat. Because that's what allows it to take its form in the world in an organized way. If you don't have wilayat, you have random people doing random acts of goodness. Why? Because we can never actually settle in on a leader. And we don't know how to get one. Just random people, I'm doing something good, that guy thinks no, I think you should pray right now. No, I think we should do jihad. I think that we should do siyam right now. I think we should do hajj. It's going to be divided. There's no way to solve these issues. Do we build a road or do we fix the wall? All of it comes apart when you don't have that. So it's a protection from divisions. It also is another effect that it has to protect us from divisions is it creates love between the believers. Because there is a mutual love of someone perfect and a mutual goal towards trying to be like that person, it pulls the believers together and closer together. We have a person, even if maybe we have a difference of opinion on something else, we have the example of the Imam to pull us together. I give you an example to show you how this love of the Ahlulbayt pulls people together. This actually happened to me. So I was traveling from Syria to Iran. I wanted to go and see my wife, and I was traveling by train. The train ticket was cheaper. So I'm riding in the train, and I meet a guy he's Christian. And he starts asking some questions, and he realizes that I'm Shia. He says, you know what? I'm Shia too. I'm like, how are you Shia? You said you were Christian. He said, no, I'm Shia. I'm like, how? He said, because I love the Ahlulbayt. And then he pulls out some poetry from some Christian poet who has praising Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he starts reading it and enjoying it. And we're like really getting close because now this is something we share. We have in common of this love of the Ahlul Bayt. Then there's another brother who was not Shia. He came and he just saw us talking, and this is an American. He's kind of curious. He tried to sit with us. And so the Christian starts praising Amir al-Mu'mineen. And when he does that, you can feel the guy getting kind of uneasy, antsy, and it takes a few minutes. Oh yeah, wait a minute, what about that time? I forgot to water my cactus. See you guys later, and he heads down the road. But that love of the Ahlul Bayt brought us together because we had something mutual that we loved. This love of the Ahlul Bayt also changes our relation with not just the believers, not just the Shia, because this is something very interesting, which you don't have because I've been on both sides. Because we have this aza of Imam Hussain and the wiladats and things like that, I can go to a random Shia masjid, let's say that it's Muharram. They start reading the story for Imam Hussain. Even if you don't know the story, you don't understand the thing, they're crying and you're crying and everybody is together. We're sharing this emotional connection even though we don't even share the language. Yes, there's some connection that comes from praying together, but it's deeper when it's coming from crying together. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second one is that you have love for your brother, creation of Allah. The rest of the khalq, you have love for. Why? Because these are, Allah created the Ahlul Bayt with love. You have love for them. And then Allah, who you love, also created these other creatures. So your initial contact with other people of other even religions, people of other faiths, people of other madhahib, you're like, well, he has some specks of the Ahlul Bayt in their teachings. Sometimes it's just a little bit here, a little bit there. But you love that little piece that they have from the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt in there. And everybody has something, even these far people. Why? Maybe they got something from Hazrat Nuh. Maybe they got something from Hazrat Ibrahim, some of these other aqwam. You have that, you share that deep love with that person because of your love of the Ahlul Bayt. Please give us salawat. Allahumma salli Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I also noticed that there is not this division between the different male and female is also goes away. And there's a hadith that backs up what I say. That with some of the other tawa'if, there's a little bit of hatred between the two genders. They don't like each other. There's a little bit of jealous, which the verse of the Quran talking about that, it's like don't wish for what the other person had. But there's some sort of jealousy rather than appreciation. The people get authority, they become arrogant. The people who don't have authority, jealous that the other side had that authority and forget about the blessings and benefits that they have. But it's interesting that we have a hadith from Amir al-Mu'min, I think it's from Imam Sadiq, I believe. He says, كُلَّ مَنْ اشْتَدَّتْ لَنَا حُبًّا اشْتَدَّتْ لِلنِّسَاءِ حُبًّا. That whoever loves us more, then his love for women increases more. So meaning this love between the genders, and it also works in reverse. That, why? Because the man is having some of the qualities of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And your love that you have for Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the shuja'at, and the butulat, and the honesty, and stuff like that, makes you have some love for the man who has some shadow quality, something like that. But it's why? Because it's via the love of the Ahlul Bayt that you can appreciate these great features that Allah has now benefited the masculine sex with, or the and also the reverse, the feminine sex. That some people noticed that. They said, I went to different Muslim communities, and when I was with the Shia, I saw that they had much more respect. Not that the other ones didn't. They weren't negative. They said, I saw that the Shias had even more respect for the women. And they said, well, why is that? He said, no, it's because they have respect for Fatima Zahra, salamu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so we're like, we have to be kind, because this woman, this Shia woman or any woman is representing some of those characteristics, those beautiful characteristics in a feminine way. And we have to now have some respect. We have to be kind. We have to be soft. We have to be X, Y, and Z. And then also the reverse being true. So this is something which is very important. Now, when you have love for Allah, your initial interaction with Allah isn't Allah's going to send me to hell. When you have the Ahlulbayt, you're thinking that, you know what? Inshallah, the Shafaat of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad will save me. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yes, you do your duties. We know that you can't skip your salats and you skip your zakats and things like that. But what I've noticed is that when the attitude is that make your salat or you're going to go to hell, right? That's one attitude to take, right? Now you think that Allah is just sitting there, as a child, you imagine, waiting for you to mess up so He can send you into hell, right? So then that makes a tense relationship with, if somebody's sitting there with a stick to hit me in the back of the head the second I make a mistake, it's a tense relationship, right? You have a little bit of hatred, actually, because you think this guy's just going to bop me in the back of the head. I made a little mistake, now I'm getting bopped in the head. You help it or not, you can't but have some sort of dislike. But if I'm making my salat because I want to make the Ahlulbayt happy, I want to imitate the Prophet. I know the Prophet prayed and I want to be like the Prophet. I know Imam Ali prayed, I want to be like Imam Ali, meaning he's an example. If you look at the example of the Prophet, you don't have the Prophet walking around with a stick beating them into the masjid or something like that. They said that when the Prophet would make wudu, the people would run and come and try to catch and grab the drops of water. When they would have descriptions, they would say, well, the Prophet would do this, he would do it with this foot, he would do it with that foot, he would start with this hand, start with that. Is it possible that they hated him? That they're paying that much attention to every little detail? They never say, the Prophet told me to do X, Y, and Z. No, they loved him so much that anything and everything was a barakat. He was so kind and so sweet that relationship was with love. They wanted to pray how he prayed. He would say, pray the way you see me pray. It was because they wanted to do it. So when you have this sort of relationship with the Ahlulbayt, you think that I'm going to make it. Yes, I'm going to try my best to do the best job that I can. But it's not just fear and terror and things. You're like, no, if I have this love for the Ahlulbayt, then I'm going to do the best that I can. It's going to look good on my resume. And then the Prophet, inshallah, he does his shafaat and he gets me past the finish line. It's not a relationship of terror and this and that and the other. It just changes the whole format. So when you understand that my salat is for me, if I'm making salat, I'm the one who gets the benefit. I don't want to skip salat because I'll get the harm. I get further from the Ahlulbayt. I get further from Allah. Like when you make your salat or you pay your zakat, what's the niyyah? Is it like khawfan an adab? Qurbatan ilallah. To be closer to Allah. As Khuda nazdik tar bisha. Durust hai na? Right? That you want to be closer to Allah. You want to be with Allah. You want to be with the Prophet. There's never that, they say pray or get shot in the back of the head. No, we pray this way. That's a different, even think about it. These tawhuts, they like people to do that. But they like the tawhuts like you to even fake it though, if you ever notice. When you come and stand before Saddam, you're supposed to be like, Saddam, my Sayyid al-Rais is so happy to see. He wants you to fake it. He doesn't want you to be like, oh, I'm just, because there's a football player, Says, I'm just here so I won't get fined. They would ask him questions. He didn't like the news reporters, but the NFL said, if you don't come to the press conference, we're going to take your money. So he would show up. He wouldn't answer any questions. He's like, I'm just here so I won't get fined. If you do that, like, is that even like ibadah? Would you accept it for yourself? You know how all of us, our nafs, if we let our nafs go, we want to be ana rabbukum wala ala. If you let your nafs go, it goes crazy. If you hold it, then you be the abd of Allah. But if you let it go, you go insane. And someone says, yeah, everybody's praying for Fir'aun or whatever. And then one guy's like, he's like, starts praying, and Fir'aun sees him not that into it. And he's like, well, why are you praying? He's like, well, because you're going to kill me if I don't pray. He's just like, meaning it takes even Fir'aun to be like, now it's not fun. At least, show me some faking. So, no, we do it that way. That you're out of your love of Allah, that starts the relationship. Now we have another piece, which is that this love of the Ahlulbayt is not enough. You also have to have bara'at and farness from the enemies of the Ahlulbayt. And I see this is one of the issues which had started to infect some of the other earlier Muslims, and sometimes even affects Muslims to this day. They say, oh, I love the Ahlulbayt. But they don't have hate of the enemies of the Ahlulbayt, and they also don't believe in the system of the Ahlulbayt. See what I mean? You have to have hatred of the enemies and believe in the system of the Ahlulbayt and disbelieve in the systems of the other people. So we have this. We read this Ayatul Kursi. But if you read the next ayat, which comes after, La ikraha fi din, qad tabayyana rushdu min al-ghayy, there's no compulsion of religion. The truth has become clear from the falsehood. فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. Not just that he yu'min billah. Lazim yakfur bit taghut. He has to be against the taghut. Even if it's a mujassama, it's an idol that you can see, or it's just an idol in your mind. We have to be against these disbelieving systems. That when you have this dislike for them, this is what they say, barat. I'll give you an example. And it's very important to have this. We have in the African American community, all of us know like the Nation of Islam. They started with bara. Their belief system was messed up. But this aspect of starting with bara was very important. Even if you think about it, la ilaha illallah, it starts with bara. There's nothing else except Allah. They were very, angry because they were oppressed. They said, we're not going to be free unless we have hatred for our enemies. So they started off with the white man's the devil. They took it too far, right? So I'm not endorsing that the white man's the devil. So if there's any white men here, don't worry about it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that concept of that I am not going to believe in a kafiri system, in a taghuti system, in some sort, and then first I have to do that, then I can be free. I can't have hope in that. Yes, I might cooperate it. I travel to some town and this is the law of the town. It doesn't go against the fundamental parts of Islam. They want me to drive 55 in this area and 65 in that area. Okay, you don't have to break the law. You don't break the law like that. That's just causing facade in that society. But the idea that the laws that they have, which some person thought up, is the actual system or the system that they have, or that, Fir'aun really is God. If you have this sort of hope in this type of kufr, this can lead you off the right path. We have these 2 points just to make this point, which some people, they have the shakayat for us. They say that, why do you guys always, curse? You shouldn't be cursing. You should just leave it all up to Allah, right? But if you notice in the Quran, there's 2 things. Wilayat is in the Quran, and also bara'at is in the Quran. We have this ayat of the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alladhina kafaru wa matu wa hum kuffara ulaika alayhim al-la'na la'natullah wal malaikatu wan nas ajma'in. That the people who die and they're kuffar, not these people who just don't know. We're talking about kuffar, meaning he knows and he dies. Then Allah curses him, and the angels curse him, and the people curse him. And they say, no, but XYZ wasn't a kafir, maybe he was in one of these other categories. He made zahir of iman. Allah says that the munafiqs are even worse than the kafirs. So if the kafirs are getting la'nat, then we give the 2 for the munafiqs. Just for that, we give an extra la'nat for the awal zalim and zalim haqqa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa thani wa thalith wa rabi wa yazid khamisa. Alhanhum jami'an. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we actually are required, if you're reading this ayah, and we want to obey the ayah, especially there's certain aqwam, they say, no, the zahir meaning is the only meaning. Okay, this is the zahir meaning and the only meaning. We'll go with you with this case. Then you shouldn't just think that you have la'na, you should say it out loud. You know, even they say we don't accept the Islam of this person and that person because he didn't say it outside. Okay, then maybe the la'nat's not accepted unless we say it out loud too. So then, and the reverse is true. For the salawat, Inna Allah wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this takes us to the story of Hazrat Hur, who, when Imam Hussain was continuing his march up from Mecca to Kufa, then they captured and murdered Muslim ibn Aqil and Hani ibn Urwa and arrested many of the Shia. And just to piggyback along the point that the other brother was making the other day, that Shia in the meaning that we understand it now didn't really exist except in some individuals at that time. When you see some of their sayings, you can tell that some of them had a very basic understanding, like the Ahlulbayt are better than everybody else, but there's still some sort of Khalifa, meaning, which it seems to be the majority of the Kufans had that understanding. And the other ones, a lot of them, they wanted it, meaning like they wanted the right person for the wrong reason. Meaning they didn't actually love the Ahlulbayt, but they knew the Ahlulbayt were just. And they were getting the short end of the stick with the Bani Umayyah, so they wanted the Ahlulbayt to come and fix the situation. But they didn't want the Ahlulbayt for themselves. Then there were others who they liked the Ahlulbayt, thought the Ahlulbayt were better and had some sort of maqam, but it was just very simple. Like they knew that the tribe of Ismail had some sort of maqam. But what it exactly did mean, they didn't seem to even, like you almost see none of them with this concept of, like that the malaika come down to them or something like that. However, it is interesting, some of them did have that concept. And we can tell in history. Like when they used to curse Mukhtar, these they weren't even Ahl Sunnah Jama'at, wasn't invented then. So that's hundreds of years later. But the opposition, Mukhtar would sometimes say these kinds of things. Meaning like he was putting them on a very high position above where the other people were thinking that they were just some sort of khulafa but better. Like he had the concept that the imam could be ghaib, and he had the concept that like a lot of this, like that they had hidden knowledge and things. Mukhtar was like, his group was saying this type of thing. So it's clear that some of the people had a idea of Shiism which was very similar to what we have now, that you start to see more of in the time of Imam Sadiq, where it seems like most of the Shias tend to know this type of thing, whereas when the time of the early Imams, it doesn't seem like hardly anybody knows it. Like you'll have Salman al-Farsi sometimes say something like that, but then the rest of the people just seem to think Amir al-Mu'mineen is a really good guy. The Prophet said, follow him, so I'm going to follow him. They had that kind of opinion. And even when we see this little interaction with Hur, you can tell what the understanding of the common man was from that. So Hur was Ibn Ziyad al-Riyahi, came with 1,000 men. He was ordered by the leaders of his tribe to block that. Our tribe now is following the Yazid, so in their logic, they followed their tribe off a cliff. So their tribe made bay'ah to Ibn Ziyad, and they sent Hur out. The command was to block all of the roads. So he saw Imam Hussein's caravan, and he sent his army running fast. They were coming so fast that they ran out of water in the desert, and they blocked the Imam, but they had no water. And when they caught up to the Imam, this is where the generosity and the kindness of the Imam came in. He gave all of them water, and then he also gave their horses water, the same horses that came to oppress them. Then he said, oh, who are you, this, that, and the other? He said, well, we're here from the army. The Amir al-Mu'mineen told us to stop you from entering Kufa. And he said, no, I have these letters. The people of Kufa invited me there. We don't have we didn't have any shura, we didn't have this. I'm invited by the chiefs of your qawm. He said, oh, I don't know anything about these letters. Whether he was just saying for political reasons or he really didn't know, maybe it was just absent of what was going on. But he's like, I'm not going to let you in. So they started arguing, and some of the Imam's companions were like, let's just kill them now, and we'll just force our way in. And the Imam was like, no, I'm not going to be the one who's initiating the fighting. And when they're arguing, Imam Hussain said something like, may your mother be bereaved from you. Which is basically shame on you in their language. But they would say, that's how they would say it. May your mother be bereaved from you. But Hur's response was, if anyone said this to me, I would fight him. He said, but I can't say something similar about your mother because your mother is Fatima Zahra. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So he said, well, let's try to make some sort of a compromise. So they took them to another area. And the governor was like, it has to be an area without water and this and that and the other. So he took him to another area, and this was Karbala. And when they used to pray, Imam Hussain said, this is the leader of your troops. You can go ahead and lead them in salat. And he said, no, I'm not going to pray. I can't have the son of the Prophet here, and I lead the prayer. You go and you pray, and I'll pray behind you. So the whole army was praying behind Imam Hussain until the rest of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad's army got there. They started doing negotiations to Imam Hussain. He was like, I'll go to a different area. They said, no. He said, take me to Yazid. I'll argue with him. They said, no, you have to come to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and make bay'ah to him. He said, okay, then just send me back to Medina. I'll go back to my people. No, we're not going to do that. So they argued with Omar bin Saad and stuff like that, until finally they decided that they were going to have the war. And now the two of them, Omar ibn Saad and Hur, were both making a decision that same night. So Hur is thinking, can I really go and fight against the son of the Prophet? And Omar ibn Saad is thinking the same thing. But Omar ibn Saad is like, that's a lot of money to kiss off. They're going to make me in charge of Iran. Shahr-e-Ray, which is the wheat fields in Iran. Huge province. I'll be rich. I'll be famous. He said, but there's no way I can't kill the Imam. If I kill the Imam, I'm going to go to hell. So he had this choice. Same thing as Hur is like, I'll be famous. I'll be a general. I'll be this. But if I killed the Imam, I'm going to go to hell. So Omar ibn Saad thought and thought and thought. He said, what can I do? This is a friend, a personal friend of mine. This is a member of my tribe. I can't kill Imam Hussain. But that's a lot of money. So, very interesting. What did he do wrong here? He had some sort of love of the Imam, but he didn't have yakfur with bitaghut. He still believed in the kafir system. So he had to, Imam Hussein's making him make a choice. So he said, you know what? I'll make tawbah. I'll kill the Imam, and then I'll go and I'll run to the Kaaba, make hajj, get forgiveness, and it'll work. So he decided to go forth with the attack. Hur made the opposite decision. He looked at it from a different way. I don't know what he was going through his mind when he's thinking. Maybe he's thinking about the tragedy of Fatima Zahra, salamullah alayha. Maybe he's thinking about how much she suffered when the people came to her door. Maybe he's thinking about the fires when they kicked the door and it hit Fatima Zahra, salamullah alayha, and he couldn't kill her son. Maybe he's thinking about all the hardship and the pain. Maybe he's thinking about the Imam being alone. Maybe he's thinking about the children of Imam. How can I go back and give my children water when the Imam's children are thirsty? How can I go back to my wife and keep her safe when the Imam's wife is in chains? How can I go back and look at my sisters in the face when Zainab is hurt? He spends the night thinking and thinking and thinking, and his heart finally moves. And he says, I can't do this. I can't do this. I have to go and help the Imam, even if it costs me my life. So he takes his soldiers and he rides from the camp of Yazid and he rides to the camp of Imam Hussain, and he says, my master, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I stopped you. If I hadn't stopped you, this wouldn't happen. If I hadn't have blocked your way, if I had opened the path for you, if I had joined you with my men, we could have stopped all of this. Please forgive me for my sins. The Imam says, no, you're forgiven for your sins. Thank you for coming on my side. He said, please give me the opportunity to go and fight for you. I'll be the first to fight for you to make up for my sins. So Hur goes and then he fights, and he fights a hard battle. He kills many of the enemy, and finally he becomes surrounded, and they cut him down, and they knock him from his horse, and they kill him. And the Imam runs to his body, and he rescues him. And he says, your mother named you Hur, which means you are free, and you are free in this life and the next. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون اللهم اجعل حياتنا حياة محمد وآل محمد ومماتنا ممات محمد وآل محمد واتنا في الدنيا زيارة محمد وآل محمد وفي الآخرة شفاعة محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد